Morning. I'm a day late recording this, but had some other stuff going on yesterday. Point of note, a few videos back, I made a mistake when I was responding to Grungeon Master's video about how civilized goblins actually are. I mentioned the Aztecs being in their Bronze Age when the Spanish arrived. This is wrong. The Aztecs were still Stone Age at this point. It was the Inca that were already in the Bronze Age when the Spanish came. I'm always going to point out my own mistakes and correct them. If you find any mistakes I made, point them out to everybody in the comments. I read all the comments, and I will honestly thank you for it. I've said it before, but I would rather be corrected than keep being wrong. Okay, so the most recent information we have regarding the southwest gate of Texta is just over 600 years old. Again, we're continuing on exploring the lands surrounding our hermit kingdom of Texta. 600 years ago is the story of the druid Dapnom and her band, who escaped when slave hunters attacked their village. And it was these goblins that founded the farming city of Dapnomwick. This was only shortly before the walls surrounding Texta were completed, which took in total about 200 years. The humans who attacked the Druids' original homeland would not pursue their quarry into the poisoned lands, into the cursed places. Since that time, there has been no interaction or information from this direction. The view from the gate, from atop the gate, is deep green in the southwest. Trees and dense brush, an incredibly healthy, verdant forest, growing right up to the wall itself. Now, from on top of the wall, you can somewhat see over parts of the canopy, but you can't see through it. When the gate is finally opened, our explorers can see a tunnel, perhaps the first quarter mile, into the undergrowth, only along and above the remains of what was once a stone road. Smaller brush and plants have managed to take a foothold in the cracks in the stone, but the trees haven't yet succeeded in completely consuming the old path. Like all the parties sent out in other directions, these Textans are equipped with provisions for their travel: a small wagon, 2 goats to pull it, letters of marque and introduction in both official languages of their nation, Goblin and Kobold Draconic, telling the rest of the world that Texta exists, offering correspondence, and hoping for peaceable trade. Being that there was once a civilization of some kind here, it's only a week before our explorers encounter ruins. At first they see the stone circle remains, the foundations of ancient goblin roundhouses, long in decay and overgrowth with brush due to the insistence of nature. They can barely make out what once was, except that this method of construction is still being used in Texta to this day. Within another week, the party comes across more ruins. These are square stone foundations, some standing walls. The size varies greatly, but the scale is for larger folk, read medium creatures, judging by the few doorways that are partially intact. There's not much remaining other than the stone ruins, just a few rust-rotted tools too far gone to identify with any precision. straying to within a mile of their direct route of travel to see what else they could find. Either side of the path, the party finds other stones in the brush and barely visible amongst the forest in clearings and hidden among tall grass. They find gravestones. Considering the size and apparent age of the ruins they'd seen, it seems there's an exceptionally large number of cemeteries. The spacing of the individual graves leads our explorers to believe these are the resting places of the larger folk. Small folk graves would be a lot closer together. Doing a little math, they surmise that either there was a very high density of population here, or there was a very high mortality rate. Some of the stones bear names and dates, but are very badly weathered, so not much information could be gained. They are very old and very numerous, and none that are partially legible are newer than about 600 years old. Just past the collection of square-built ruins, they find one more structure. Roughly round, now mostly covered in dirt and plant growth, a corbelled dry stone dome. It's reminiscent of a beehive. Finding the entrance half buried with the remains of a steel cage gate blocking it, the door isn't capable of keeping anyone or anything in or out after 600 years of rust. The interior smelled of nothing but the dirt itself, stale with age. Once light is brought in, our explorers find a jumbled pile of bones. Several dozen, perhaps over 100 skeletons of small folk, most likely goblins, collapsed into a heap on the floor. Among the pile are what remains of chains and shackles. They pay their respects to the dead, both large and small, and continue southwest. Another month brings our party out of the forest and into grasslands. Lush plains as far as can be seen, with occasional scrub brush and grass standing taller than our explorers. As in all their experience, the party documents everything and builds their portion of the map. The plants, the animals, the ruins, and the remains are all written down and recorded for posterity. The travel being slowed by the need to record the ruins, and by the density of the forest growth, they're now moving swiftly over open ground. After another 2 months, our explorers sight herds of animals. Wild herds of deer and bison, but also cattle being managed and moved about mostly by orcs and a few humans, all on horseback. They also note that there are no buildings in sight. Communication is halting at first, until a common language between the two groups is found. Once that is established, information is traded. There are apparently several groups of herders out on these plains. They're all independent of one another, each managing a single herd belonging to a single family. Each family owns a fenced-off plot of farmland with a housing barracks and barns and stables and the like, with a proper house for the owner and their family. They call these ranches. It is expected that the party will pass a couple or a few of these along their path, and the proper etiquette is explained and easily adopted. Wait at the gate to be recognized and invited in. Don't steal anything, try to be polite, and try to be honest. That's really about it. Past these ranches, they are told to expect a town. But not until the grassland turns to scrub plain. It's a market town where all manner of livestock is traded and sold, as well as where any and all other amenities are brought into the area to be sold. It's another 2 months of travel before the first ranch is encountered and peaceably interacted with. Again, the primary population here is orcs with a small percentage of humans. Another month finally brings them to the market town. The town is called Deep Wells. The buildings are all of plank wood construction and line the two very wide streets of a crossroad. The population here is much more diverse than that of the ranches and the herders, as well as orcs and some percentage of human. There are a few halflings and elves, some small number of tieflings and dragonborn, and a handful of goblins and hobgoblins, and even 2 or 3 dwarves and gnomes visible among the population. Cattle, pigs, sheep, and goats are being herded to and from various pens and stockyards between and behind the buildings. Horses are being ridden or led or pulling wagons everywhere. Chickens, ducks, and geese are shuttled around in cages by wagon. And the people flow in and out of open storefronts. It's a very busy and bustling town. Seeking out the local authority, our explorers are sent to speak with the governor of the territory. Mr. Ulgan is the orc governor. He is an elected official, a strange concept for those from Texta. He was chosen for the position by those who have the right to a vote. Those being only landowners. And the election is called again every 10 years. The laws in the town are very simple. Don't steal, don't kill, don't cheat. Don't engage in violence within the confines of the town. Don't sleep on the streets. Basically, don't be a nuisance. Don't be a nuisance. Especially... He's happy to exchange information with the emissaries of Texta, especially when he hears mention of mining and timber. Tools and weapons, or even raw materials, it turns out, are rather more expensive than they should be to transport in from the larger cities on the coast to the northwest. So something closer and potentially cheaper would be much preferred. He's greatly impressed with the quality of the explorer's gear and tools, and welcomes the chance to correspond with the neighboring government. He is also greatly impressed with the quality of the goats that are pulling our explorer's wagon, compared to those breeds that are locally available. When asking about the ruins they had initially encountered on their path, and about the local history, the party is sent to the archivist. She is a very old orc woman, and she has a large building stacked floor to ceiling with books and papers. She finds the records in question easily. Deep Wells was named so because the groundwater here is very difficult to reach. All of the wells are at least 200 feet deep. The town has stood for well over 1,000 years, although the surrounding ranch lands have changed hands multiple times in that long period. As to the ruins closer to Texta, there was a large human-owned farmstead recorded to have been there several hundred years ago. Apparently they were struck with a sickness of some kind, and despite bringing in more and more laborers over the years, and even resorting to taking slaves of the local goblin tribes, there weren't enough bodies to work the fields anymore. In the end, they all died of whatever disease it was that had struck them. With good news, new maps, and more history to be added to the records, our party of explorers re-provision in town and begin their long journey home. Don't worry, there's not going to be a railroad coming through or displaced tribes raiding the town. It's a little bit fantasy western, but remember how rare guns are here. It's still medieval fantasy overall. I figured it'd be fun to give the orcs the first actual early democracy in this world. Granted, the voter list might be a little small, however many ranches there are, anyone who owns one of the buildings in town, and that's about it. Small voter list equals small government. There might be some kind of constabulary or a town guard, but they wouldn't likely be very visible unless they need to be. I didn't name any of the ranches or go into detail with any of the interactions with them. I didn't think it wouldn't really add much to the lore. Deep Wells is isolated and landlocked. It's intimated that 6 months over land is closer than the cities on the coast, which would be their only other option for import, and likely their only major destination for export too. I also didn't name any of those coastal cities because those might come up in the next video. Okay, if you're enjoying this kind of thing, like, share, comment, and subscribe. I'll keep making videos as long as somebody watches them. Actually, I'll probably keep making them even if nobody watches them, because it's a good record for me for keeping all of this lore accurate for the world I'm building. And the more you interact, liking, sharing, commenting, etc., the more people will see the videos. Alright, talk to you next time.